are Group 59, and we created the dice game called Blitzee. My name is Jill, and I was responsible for the scoring system and the score table.
Hi, my name is Natalia, and I was responsible for incorporating all the code into App Designer and the randomization of the dice.
Hi, I'm Arthi, and I was responsible for some reach features.
I'm Porter, and I worked on ThingSpeak functionality and the leaderboard.
So our game begins here on the menu screen for Blitzee. So we're going to go ahead and start with the instructions. We're going to go back over to the menu in order to play the game. So first, you're going to have the option to pick a character, and then each character is going to have a audio that's going to go with them. So for example, Ken.
Hi, I'm Ken.
Or if I were player 2. It's going to take you to the main game screen where you can see that the avatars are shown and the names are also shown too. So in order to play, you can hit roll. And then you can roll up to 3 times. So I'm going to go through and roll 3 times. And then once that third roll is completed, it will automatically switch the turn to the next character. And then the other option is for your turns to roll the first time. And then I can go ahead and keep these higher scores. And then notice that they will not roll. And if I decide I'm satisfied with this, I can press the keep score button to cut my turn short. And the next player will automatically be up. And then notice that the don't check rolls buttons are automatically removed for the next player. And each turn, the table will auto-populate based on which player is up. So now I'm going to go ahead and run through the 5 rounds. As a Blitzee, that little animation will appear along with that cheering sound effect. All right, and then after 5 rounds are up, player 2, the roll button and all the dice features will go away, indicating the game is over, and a trophy will be displayed next to the winner, and then better luck next time is displayed next to the loser.
Hi there, this is Jill, and I will be going over the code for the score table. So to start the scoring system up, I created a table with the combos down the first column and the players' names across the first row. So this first part of the code right here tests if it's player 1's turn or not, or if player 1 is equal to true. Next, using the stored values based on which 5 dice faces were rolled, I counted the number of each value that was rolled, and I multiplied that by the value to get the total score. And then that was inputted into the single value cells in the table. Next, the code scans for a 3 of a kind using if loops to see if the number of any value of dice is more than or equal to 3. And if it is, it will assign the 3 of a kind cell with that value times 3. Very similarly, next, the code scans for a 4 of a kind, which uses if loops to scan for 4 repeated values, and if any of those are true, then it assigns the 4 of a kind cell to that value times 4. Next, for the chance, I used the sum function to add the total values of the dice faces and insert it into that chance cell. Next, for a Blitzee, I used another if loop to see if any of the num value variables were 5, and if they were, then the player was awarded 50 in that Blitzee cell. Afterwards, the code scans for a small straight, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 3, 4, 5, 6. And values end up all being true, then the small straight cell is then changed to a 30 points. Finally, the total score cell is just the sum of every cell in the column above it. And then this whole code is repeated for player 2, but instead, if it's player 2's turn, then the scores will be inserted in the 3rd column instead of the 2nd.
All right, so my first task was to create the randomization of the dice, and this was done by obtaining a random integer between 1 and 6 using the randi function. And then it will display the corresponding dice face on an axis in the game screen based on what number is rolled between 1 and 6. And then this code will only be executed if the value of the don't roll button is 0, meaning it is unchecked. And then my next step was to incorporate Jill's table into the game screen. And so the first step that was super important to this code is to create a public property using all the variables in the code and setting them initially equal to 0 to begin. And the purpose of this is for the variables to remain accessible throughout the app, specifically to hold the value of that variable between each roll, so that way we can get the overall totals into the table. And using her code, once that table was completed, at the end of each round, we're going to write an Excel file of scores, and then using this command here, we're going to copy that Excel file into the table in the game screen. And then the last 3 components of the game are the keep score button, the identifying whose player's turn it is, and then declaring a winner. So for the keep score button, this will keep track of the number, or this will switch for the players if they decide to stop their turn before the 3 rolls are up. So there's maybe count here in order to determine which player is up, even for player 2, odd for player 1. And then this count here is going to keep track of the rolls of each player within each turn. So if it is cut early, it'll be automatically reset to 0. Or if the player allows it to just hit 3 by completing their 3 rolls, then it'll be executed automatically. And this will just change which player is set to true, which player is set to false. And additionally, it will change the visibility of these labels under the correct avatar to display whose turn it is. And then the last thing is we have this variable here, round number, which starts at 0, and then 1 is added each time player 2 completes their turn in order to keep track of the total number of rounds. And then once that number is equal to 5, we're going to use a logical operator to compare the totals of player 1 and player 2, and accordingly on which one is bigger, a winner will be displayed on the game screen.
I'm going to be talking about the player selection screen now. So when the player selects a character, for example, say they selected Barbie, then the computer reads the Barbie intro sound effect and it plays that sound effect. If they select Patrick, then it plays a Patrick sound effect. Same with player 2. No matter which character they choose, the sound effect is going to play. And for the start button, the name that they enter in the player 1 edit field value is going to be stored as name 1, and same with player 2. Now, when they press the start button, the sparkle sound effect is going to play. It's going to pause for 1 second. Now, if they selected the Barbie character, then the avatar that shows up on the side is going to read Barbie. If they chose the monster, then the monster is going to show up. Same with player 2. Now, for the gameplay, to indicate that the roll button has been pushed, it changes color, it goes through this loop. The dice roll sound effect plays, it pauses for a second. Now, to give the impression that the dice are rolling, if the don't roll checkbox is not clicked, then it goes through the animation. So for example, dice 1 is going to show dice face 1 and dice face 3, while dice 2 may show dice face 4 and dice face 2, and so on. So there's a pre-programmed animation for each dice. And for the GIFs and the other sound effects, if the player rolls a score that is less than 30, then there's a nice try GIF. The same thing goes for player 2. And for round number 5, which is the last round, if player 2 is greater than player 1, then the winner GIF is under player 2, and the better luck is under player 1.
All right, now on to ThinkSpeak. Whenever a game is completed, the winner's name and score are actually saved and are sent into this function here called score report. Score report reads the data from our ThinkSpeak channel and records it into a variable called data. Then this function checks if the winner's score is even worth reporting. That is, if it is higher than the lowest score in the ThinkSpeak channel's recorded data. If it actually qualifies for recording, the data is adjusted so we can slip the winner's score into the ThinkSpeak channel. Then it simply takes the data that we've altered and puts it back in the ThinkSpeak channel. So as we can see here, Natalia scored a grand total of 434 points. When we launch the leaderboard, her score is reflected there. The leaderboard itself is also very simple. It's simply a table that, when the app is launched, reads from the ThinkSpeak channel and displays it in the table.